hedge is looking rather unruly and in desperate need of a trim, but I'm actually quite pleased because the brambles have been really early this year, and they sort of track all the way up through these through the privet. And I love brambles actually. I mean, we tend to think of them as thugs and undesirables, but the flowers are incredible for pollinators. My bees love them. Wasps, hoverflies, flies, you name it, they love them. And also, because they're such a magnet for pollinating insects, they're also magnets for hornets and wasps who like to predate the flying insects. So I really love brambles because, like I said, you've got the flowers, then of course we have the fruits. So everybody knows about brambles, which are the precursor of cultivated blackberries, and they're full of vitamin C and lots of antioxidants and other good stuff. They make an excellent jelly. They're nice in a crumble with apple. Bramble jelly is delicious. I like making jellies out of these things because it means you don't have to worry too much about all the pips, which can be rather off-putting. So we know about the flowers for bees and insects, other insects, and we know about the fruits for not just us, but birds and mammals will love them too. But I really like bramble leaf tea. So you may, especially the ladies among my viewers, will possibly have heard of raspberry leaf tea. Well, of course, raspberries and blackberries are related, and in the same way as raspberry leaf tea is full of all lots of sort of good things for us, vitamins, minerals, again antioxidants. They're very good for women's health, but it's also quite tasty. Makes a slightly sort of cloudy tea, but it's just a question of picking some of the smaller leaves. Obviously they do have little thorns on them, so be mindful of that. You can use the older leaves. They're not any if you're putting them in a tea, it doesn't matter so much if they're a bit older and woodier. But I usually use a sort of careful handful, bearing in mind the thorns, a careful handful in a pot. But obviously you could just use a couple of leaves in a cup. Here's a slightly better photo of the flowers. You can see how perfect they are for pollinators. That lovely open sort of structure, which means they're really accessible and absolutely laden with pollen. It's rained here overnight, so it's all a bit soggy, but there's absolutely masses of pollen on each of those flowers, and they give out a lot of nectar as well. And some more berries there. So I'm going to take a few more leaves, because the other one up there I've rather denuded every morning. I think the other thing to remember about brambles is their thickets, which are rather impenetrable and we regard as I said, rather undesirable, are fantastic for nesting birds, growing, little trees grow up through them, and they're protected from grazing by the brambles. So they're a real powerhouse, really. We should be a bit more appreciative. I understand having it romping through your garden isn't particularly desirable, but they are an amazing plant. Got a hen here, Hazel, who absolutely loves blackberries, brambles. Oh, they all do, but she doesn't normally let anyone else get a look in. They're actually meant for the guinea pigs, rhubarb.
guinea pigs need vitamin C every day like us. So I put these down for Winnie and Piglet, but Rhubarb seems to have rather helped himself. Never mind, I'll pick some more later for the guineas when Rhubarb's demolishing something in the lounge so they have it to themselves. Good boy. Won't do him any harm. Get it? As with all foraging, you have to be careful to only take enough for exactly what you need, because, as I said, lots of things enjoy brambles and will appreciate the fruits far more than we do. So just be a bit mindful of that. And it's not too bad with brambles, because there's quite a few which have got, you know, manky bits or aren't quite so perfectly formed that you can leave for the animals, but worth remembering. They're quite strong flavoured anyway, so you don't need a huge amount, and they add a beautiful flavour, just even a handful in an apple crumble or a cake or something. And as I said, because they're quite pippy, the cultivated blackberries that you'd buy are bred to be, obviously these have got actual seeds inside them, whereas the cultivated ones are usually sterile, so they're the seeds, if they are there, a bit like seedless grapes, you know, they're much more diminutive in size, and so you don't really want too many of these unless, like I said, you're going to make a puree and then strain the pips, strain the juice from the pips, and so yeah, they're quite limited with how many you'd want to put in something anyway. But they are absolutely beautiful, and I'm a big believer in the fact that nature gives us what's right for us to be eating at, you know, that time in the season. So at a time when we've got to sort of prepare ourselves for, you know, the winter season with the, you know, colds and flus, and even more prevalent this time of year in 2020, of course. You know, these provide us with all sorts of goodness that is super fresh and really accessible, and I think it's important for us to take advantage of these things when we can. So yeah, I'm quite ritualistic, some may say obsessive, about my herbal tea. I'm not a great fan of kind of packet commercial teas, even the kind of the nice ones like the tea pigs and things, just because I find them quite intense in their flavour, and I just kind of resent the packaging and stuff like that as well. So I always try and look for, you know, the sort of herbal teas that you can make just from picking leaves in your garden. Obviously there's the peppermint, if you go chamomile, there's that too. One thing that's lovely at this time of year, which is sort of midsummer, is lime blossom tea or linden tea, which is, I mean, it just knocks me out. It's fantastic if you need to get to sleep. But it's a very sort of fragrant, floral, flowery kind of tea. This is a lot more robust, and but it's kind of it's sort of fruity. It's on the fruity side of vegetative or kind of herbal, if you know what I mean. So it's not quite as it's nothing like as strongly flavoured as peppermint, but it's got quite a yeah, it's certainly resonant of sort of berries and fruitiness, but it's a bit more leafy than that. Am I talking complete gibberish? Anyway, so I've given my leaves a bit of a wash carefully, because they have got tiny little prickles on them. And I'm just going to get I always make herbal tea in my green teapot. I can't remember if this was my mum and dad's or my grandparents'. Mum, if you're watching, can you remind me? Anyway, it's a Denby, and I just love the colour. If you've seen any of my other sort of website marketing stuff, you know how much I love this kind of sage green. I've got my hives painted this kind of colour. It's one of my favourite colours. And then I've got my Soho Home enamel cup. And the good thing about making a big pot of tea like this is that I can just start it, you know, in the morning. It's now, what's time? Gosh, 9:20. Anyway, so I can start it in the morning. I'm not great at sort of drinking water just unless I'm like thirsty. And in order to kind of keep hydrated, I find it much easier to have a pot of herbal tea on the go, because obviously you can drink it lukewarm, you can drink it cold, and the flavour sort of changes slightly. And then you can just top it up again, or go out and pick some fresh leaves, or, you know, maybe something different if you're feeling adventurous. And so I've just put my, what's that? Is that about 8 leaves, sort of handful, and a cat hair, marvellous. And then I've just got some boiling water. And I'll leave that to brew for at least 5 minutes, but anything up to about 20 if I forget about it. And yeah, that'll be a really lovely tea. So, and I've got a few, I don't know if you can, yeah, they'll fall out. So I've got my blackberries here. Obviously we call them berries, but they're technically aggregate fruits. So these, each one of these little kind of bobbles is called a druplet, which is rather adorable. And so yeah, these are, as we say, aggregate fruits, but we call them berries, don't we? Which everyone knows what that is. So I will probably freeze these, because I want to gather enough to make some puree, which you can then freeze into little ice cubes, or small pots or something, so that you can then just, as I said, add a cube to an apple crumble or something, and it just gives a lovely blackberry flavour without all the pips. So that's what I'm going to do with these.
You can really see the sort of pad kind of tongue of the fly just tapping all over the florets to pick up the nectar, which is very different from a bee. I think I said in one of the other vlogs about how they have a proboscis, which is like a needle which sticks down into the flower, the nectaries of the flower, whereas the fly is more just, I don't know if that's focused, the fly is more like a kind of mop. Bees really enjoying this Montbretia. I'm glad somebody is, I hate this stuff. Huge web here. Can you see? All belonging to, where is she? There she is. Come out and see what's going on. It's because I poked one of these guidelines with my hand when I was trying to zoom in. Her web goes all the way up here. Absolutely huge. Sorry, madam. Beautiful spider. Nursery web. Oh. Nursery web spider. Bit breezy out here today. I don't really give my chickens treats. It's not very good for them to have too much by way of food other than layers pellets, because they're kind of designed to. Yes, thank you. they're kind of designed to eat those, and if you give them too much other stuff, it can end up causing a kind of imbalance in their crop, and the crop is where they digest their food essentially. But this is some sourdough, and you can see I've soaked it just to make it a bit less, well, a bit easier for them to swallow. And so I'm just going to give this out for them. I don't give them too much, and try and give it to them sort of in the middle of the day so they don't pig on it instead of having their pellets. So also I've got the chicks are over there, and I've got the pullets somewhere as well. Don't know where they've gone, but I'm sure they'll come out once I chuck this out. Sort of feeding frenzy. Ralph being very generous and pretending he's suddenly provided all this marvellous bounty. It's quite important for the chicks and the pullets to work out the flock dynamics. They soon work out who's who in the hierarchy. While the ducks over there are wondering what on earth the fuss is all about.
Cobbler Bundt Cake. Bundt Cake. One of these. Now I have made a few Bundt cakes before, and they've always stuck spectacularly, which is not what they're meant to do. So I did spend yesterday watching a 10-minute video on YouTube about how to grease your Bundt pan so that your cakes don't stick. So here we go. It is a non-stick, but not kind of like the Teflon coating that we have. It's kind of quite a thin coating, but it's Nordic ware. It's made in the USA, so I'm quite surprised it's as temperamental as it is. But anyway, right. Apparently you shouldn't use butter because the sort of milk solids in butter can kind of make your cake stick to the pan. So you should use shortening, which I don't have, but somebody in the comments, does anyone else watch these things on YouTube where it says, it's this whole thing about, oh, do this and don't do that, and then somebody in the comments sort of says, oh, I always do this and it's fine. You think, oh, just go away. I didn't need to read that. Anyway, there was a British person on there that said, instead of shortening, you can use rapeseed oil. And I thought, aha, I have rapeseed oil. I'm going to be using this in the cake as well. The other thing she said, so use butter, use shortening, not butter, nor the sort of apparently the non-stick sprays, although again somebody in the comments said, oh no, that's the old-fashioned ones, you can use the new ones. Anyway, I'm going with rapeseed oil, but also she said to dust the inside of the cake pan tin with a non-wheat flour. So I've got some chestnut flour here, apparently nut flour, so almond flour, chestnut flour. And nut flour is good because it doesn't have the same sort of absorbency, starchy thing as the wheat flours. So, somebody else in the comments said, oh, I never flour my tin. Anyway, so I'm going to go with the rapeseed oil and the chestnut flour to prepare my tin. And it works because there's nothing more depressing. I mean, whenever I've made one, it's taken longer to get out the tin than it has to make the damn thing. Anyway, so I'm going to get on and prepare my Bundt pan. still not convinced, I must say. Anyway, so I've measured out the ingredients, and it's one of those ones where you have to do the wet ingredients, then add them to the dry. So I've got my KitchenAid with the whisk attachment, but I think I'm going to cheat and just do the wet ingredients with the whisk and then add the dry, so I apologise now. So I need to put I need to measure out the oil and put the eggs and the oil and the sugar. So I've got 2 types of sugar here. I've got soft brown and granulated, and 2 eggs, no shell, and a half cup of oil. I find doing cup recipes when I don't have to deal with whatever a stick of butter is completely fine. All the time I can just use cups, it's fine, but the concept of a stick is still completely lost on me. I apologise. I don't think I've got any American viewers at the moment, but I apologise to any cup-based bakers. Right, and the vanilla essence, which I need half a teaspoon. I'm doing a half recipe because the one she makes is admittedly monstrous, and so it's only me and Rosie here, and we just don't need an excuse to eat an enormous cake. We're still recovering from the cheesecake last week. There we go. So I'm going to put this onto whisk. Right, I'm now going to illegally add my dry ingredients, and this is a cup and a half of plain flour and half a tablespoon of baking powder. I've also got to add half a third of a cup of milk. I've got my 3rd cup here, so I'll just wing it. Now I need to whisk the batter to make it soft and silky smooth. I forgot the 1/4 teaspoon of salt. There we go. Right, so here I've got the peach cobbler bit, which is, I think it was 4 peaches or 3.5 peaches, but it's basically a cup, 1.5, no, 1.25 cups of peaches mixed with a tablespoon of sugar and half a teaspoon of cinnamon. And I've got to now layer this up. My hopefully correctly looks like that, I'm not sure. There we go. I'm very aware of feeling quite intimidated by a cake tin. But anyway, moving on. So I've now got to measure out, I've got to do 1/3 of the batter in the bottom of the tin, then a layer of the peaches, then another 1/3, then the peaches, and then finish with cake batter. So that's what I'll get on and do. I'm going to try and arrange the peaches sort of within the batter, because I can't imagine sticky peaches are going to help the whole revealing from the tin thing very much. So I don't know why I do this to myself. Just make a Victoria sponge woman and have done with it. Juice I meant to kind of put on, so I'm going to put it on top because I'm hoping it'll kind of melt into the batter. So this is going into, I've got it on kind of 170, 160. And I've not got the fan, it's just the kind of regular top and bottom setting of the oven. So here we are. Can't really see, but I'm not going to tip it up. Anyway, so I'm going to pop this in and hope for the best. Here's the cake. I've taken it out of the mini oven and I've popped it on a cold, wet tea towel just to kind of try and cool the base of the pan, i.e. the top of the cake, off a little bit. But it does look like it's shrunk away, doesn't it? So fingers crossed. I'm a bit confused as to whether one leaves it to cool in a tin or whether I should take it out while it's still warm. So I think I'm just going to kind of leave it until it's cooled down, and then at least I can get a good grip on the sides of the tin. But yeah, hopefully it's nice and firm, and the cake tester came out clean, so we'll see what happens. Well, yeah, it didn't come out the tin properly. The reason there's a big chunk missing is because I cut some off and ate it with lots of cream. So it's really tasty, but yes, back to the drawing board with the Bundt pan thing. That concludes the vlog. If anyone else has Bundt Cake success, please let me know if you've got any tricks, because that woman on YouTube, I've lost faith. Anyway, I'm going to persevere with Bundt Cakes. I really like them when they turn out of the tin properly. So I'll be along next week with another vlog, other updates from what's going on here. I'm hoping to have some chicks. I can't remember when those three are due to hatch. When it's like a second child, isn't it? You just think, oh, I don't know. So I'm expecting some chicks this week, I think, and there'll be more baking, more walks, more chickens. I might see if I can get some footage of the fallow deer that we've been watching over lockdown. So I will keep you updated on those. But have a good weekend, and I'll see you next time.